They said the charges were dropped and the story kept dragging on and on. But honestly, I don't hold it against them. I know I've built a reputation for not always showing up, but that reputation, well, it came from somewhere. You can't fake the funk. Sly Stone understood that long before the rest of the world caught on. He connected cultures that society insisted should never stand side by side. Black and white, rock and soul, disorder and rhythm. Sly blended them like they were meant for each other. He wasn't just creating music, he was shifting the direction of history with every beat he touched. Sly Stone never played by the rules because, for someone like him, the rules weren't written in the first place. He redefined them with every bass line, every horn section, every wild idea that came out of his head. He put women and men together, black and white musicians sharing the same stage as equals. Through all of it, he trusted not the critics, not the record charts, but the albums that rattled his bones and stretched his imagination. And Larry played the bass. He was the cousin of Cynthia Robinson, who blew the trumpet. These 7 rock albums weren't casual listening. They were blueprints for a movement. They taught him that rhythm could be rebellion and melody could be medicine. Sly didn't take the easy path, and neither did the records he worshipped. Each album cracked something open inside him. Each one proved music could be more than a product. It could change the way people think, move, and live. Before funk had a name, before integration on stage became normal, before psychedelic soul existed, Sly Stone was a sponge soaking up the brilliance around him. These are the 7 rock albums Sly called his favorites and the reasons they mattered. These are the records that built a revolutionary. If you're a fan of The Root of Genius, hit subscribe, drop a comment, and tell us the album that changed your life forever.
7. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Sly didn't just hear Sgt. Pepper. He felt it rearrange the wiring inside his mind. When the Beatles released the album in 1967, they weren't making a project. They were constructing an entire universe. Sly recognized that immediately. He once described the record as organized chaos, but he said it with admiration. Nothing about it was simple. The man and his wife don't live in perfect harmony all the time. Nothing in life is that clean. And the Beatles captured that messy brilliance. Every song flowed into the next like a fever dream that somehow made perfect sense. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, A Day in the Life, Within You, Without You. These weren't songs, they were alternate dimensions. Sly had already begun experimenting with blending styles no one thought could coexist, but Sgt. Pepper showed him there were no limits. The studio could be an instrument. Creativity didn't need permission. The Beatles had stopped following rules. They created new ones with orchestras, overdubs, and pure artistic courage. Sly loved that. He said, "They made you believe anything was possible if you stopped caring about what was normal." What struck him most was the freedom. The album didn't sound like it was chasing approval. It sounded like 4 men trusting their instincts into the unknown. Within months, Sly began building his own kaleidoscope of sound. Dance to the Music and Stan were born from that same fearless imagination. Sgt. Pepper wasn't just influential, it was Sly's permission slip to be limitless.
6. Live at the Apollo. This wasn't just a record, this was a weapon. When James Brown released Live at the Apollo in 1962, he captured something alive and unrepeatable. The first moment Sly heard it, he understood exactly what a live performance could become. It wasn't perfection, it was presence. It was sweat, fire, and a crowd losing their minds in the same moment. James Brown didn't sing songs. He commanded a congregation. Sly was still learning the craft when this album blasted through his speakers, but he absorbed lessons no classroom could teach. Brown stretched a single note until it hurt, worked the audience like he was conducting electricity, and turned please, please, please into raw theater. Pain transformed into power. Sly said Brown taught him that vulnerability becomes strength when you offer it without holding anything back. The groove on this album was pure instinct. No safety nets, no redos, just raw heart.
Sly carried that into every stage he stepped onto. He learned the performance didn't need perfection, it needed honesty. Live at the Apollo was the sound of a man refusing to hold back, and Sly never forgot that.
5. Highway 61 Revisit. When Dylan plugged in his guitar, the world split in half. Highway 61 Revisited arrived in 1965 like a lightning bolt. Sly heard it and immediately understood music could be poetry, protest, and puzzle all at once. Like a Rolling Stone, Ballad of a Thin Man, Desolation Row, these songs weren't asking to be understood, they were daring listeners to keep up. Dylan wasn't trying to be safe or commercial. He followed his own vision into uncomfortable territory. That spoke directly to Sly's soul. It became the blueprint for There's a Riot Going On years later. You didn't owe people comfort, you owed them truth. The album sounded raw, almost confrontational. Guitars snarled, organs swirled. Dylan's voice sliced through everything like broken glass dipped in meaning. Sly once said Dylan showed him that words could be weapons when sharpened right. Music didn't need to be pretty. It just needed to be real. Highway 61 Revisited was real without apology.
4. Tommy. Tommy wasn't just ambitious. It was madness with a purpose. When The Who released a rock opera in 1969, they proved noise and narrative could live together in perfect chaos. Sly admired Pete Townshend's fearlessness. This wasn't an album. It was a full-blown dramatic experience told through distortion and thunder. Pinball Wizard, I'm Free, See Me, Feel Me. Each track was a chapter of a bigger story. Sly understood that approach because he was thinking the same way. The Who didn't create songs, they created events. Tommy was loud, theatrical, emotional, and oddly beautiful. And Sly saw himself in that. He learned you could experiment wildly and still touch people's hearts. It encouraged him to think beyond singles, to build concepts, to trust his audience. Just a few years later, he delivered There's a Riot Going On. Complex, haunting, brilliant, and unapologetic. The Who proved rock could be architecture, and Sly built his own structures from that lesson.
3. Are You Experienced? Hendrix didn't play guitar, he communicated with it. When Are You Experienced hit in 1967, it shattered the limits of what 6 strings could express. Purple haze, foxy lady, manic depression. Sly felt the world shift under his feet. This wasn't music, it was electricity given language. Hendrix made the guitar scream, cry, whisper, explode. Sly respected the mix of skill and insanity. What struck him most was the freedom. Hendrix wasn't fitting into genres, he was inventing new ones. Blues, psychedelia, rock, and something cosmic no one could name. Sly said Hendrix played like he was talking to the universe. The sound was massive but intimate, chaotic but intentional. That balance became a foundation for Sly's own arrangements. The album was raw and polished at the same time, grit with grace. Sly took that lesson everywhere. Complexity should never kill the groove. Hendrix also pushed the studio further than anyone had dared. Third Stone from the Sun felt like traveling through space. That level of experimentation became central to Sly's own genius. 2. Cloud 9. This was Motown growing teeth. When Cloud 9 landed in 1969, it changed what Sly thought soul music could express. Norman Whitfield and Barrett Strong injected psychedelia and social urgency into Motown's smooth formula. Runaway Child Running Wild, I Can't Get Next to You. These weren't just love songs, they were reflections of the world's struggles. Sly heard his own ideas mirrored in this record. Funk, rock, soul, protest, they collided beautifully. The production was thick and bold, bass lines pulsed, guitars fuzzed, the vocals soared. Sly said this was the moment Motown stopped being predictable and started being dangerous. What connected Sly most was the honesty. The Temptations addressed addiction, poverty, and desperation.
yet still made you move. That combination defined Sly's entire philosophy. Music can make you dance and make you think at the same time. The title track was genius, a cautionary tale wrapped in the dangerously catchy groove. Medicine disguised as candy. Sly understood that perfectly.
1. Here's Little Richard. Before everything, there was Little Richard. For Sly Stone, this was the beginning of the universe. Here's Little Richard exploded onto the scene in 1957 and rewrote the meaning of performance. Tutti Frutti, Long Tall Sally, Rip It Up. These songs didn't ask for space, they took it. Little Richard wasn't just loud. He was liberation in human form. Makeup, screams, wild piano, unapologetic identity. He was black, queer, and fearless in an era that wanted none of that. Sly saw the courage instantly. He learned, be yourself louder than anyone expects. What made this album sacred to Sly was its joy. Even in a cruel world, Richard celebrated being alive. His energy was contagious, his rhythm primal. Sly said Little Richard taught him music wasn't about politeness, it was about honesty. Let what's inside burst outward with no fear. Sly took that fire, added social awareness, layered complexity, and built funk. But the core remained Little Richard's message. Sound is freedom. Little Richard didn't just influence Sly, he gave him permission to become Sly Stone. Sly Stone didn't follow trends, he created them. But behind every groundbreaking moment was a listener studying the masters who came before him. These 7 albums weren't just favorites, they were fuel. Fuel for courage, fuel for rhythm, fuel for truth. If this story moved you, share your favorite album in the comments and hit subscribe for more.